It's only a matter of time. That's what Russia wants the world, and especially Ukraine, to believe about the fall of Pokrovsk. The city is encircled. Comes the propaganda cry from Russia. Ukraine soldiers should surrender now, or they will burn along with the city that they're trying to defend. There is no denying that the situation in Pokrovsk doesn't look great for Ukraine. But the fall of the city isn't inevitable. Pokrovsk won't break, as Ukraine has shut down the Kremlin propaganda that claims the vital Donetsk city is encircled. Of course, you wouldn't know that if you had only heard reports about Russia's advance into Pokrovsk during the last few days. The propaganda is so strong that several mainstream media outlets are reporting that the city's fall is imminent. The Guardian is among those outlets. On November 5th, it published a piece in which it claimed that Russia's forces are tightening their grip on Pokrovsk as fighting rages throughout the city. Granted, The Guardian also notes that there are conflicting accounts of what's happening in Bark, and we'll get to Ukraine's account soon. However, it also seems to claim that Russia has the upper hand. In recent weeks, Russian forces have sharply intensified their attacks, initially relying on small dismounted assault groups before gradually massing enough troops to launch a broader offensive on the city, the outlet claimed. It also noted research from Ukrainian deep state open source initiative, which says that a tracking of the front line reveals that Russian forces have advanced deeper into Pokrovsk and the city's outskirts. Those advances aren't completed. The areas in question are still shaded gray on deep state's maps indicating ongoing fighting. Still, the situation would appear to be bleak for Ukraine. Russia certainly seems to believe that it's going to take Pokrovsk soon. Or, at least it wants Ukraine to think that it's in a strong enough position to force the collapse of the city. Also on November 5th, Reuters reported that Russia is telling Ukrainian soldiers in the cities of Pokrovsk and Kyansk that they need to surrender now, because they'll have no chance of surviving if they don't. NBC reported the same news, adding that Russia's defense ministry is claiming that the Ukrainian forces are already trapped inside both cities, and they won't be able to do anything to stop Russia's troops from advancing. Even some Ukrainian soldiers are pointing out the situation is bad. One of those soldiers is Sergeant Lyana Konuk, who served with a Ukrainian military unit operating in Pokrovsk. She tells NBC, "The situation is difficult. We are trying to control it, but unfortunately, it's only been getting worse lately." Konuk adds that far from conducting a sweeping assault, Russia is instead using a seeping strategy. As of now, there is no permanent line of defense as such. The enemy seeps northwards by 1, 2, 3 units at a time, thereby trying to erode the front line, she tells NBC. The message getting out there is that Ukraine's Pokrovsk forces are surrounded. Russia has finally managed to pull off the encirclement it's been trying to create since May. Vladimir Putin's forces may have failed to take PR during the summer as Putin had initially planned. With the city encircled, it's only a matter of time before Pokrovsk falls. Assuming Russia is telling the truth, the collapse of Pokrovsk may even come before Christmas. But therein lies the sticking point. Russia may not be telling the truth. The country has been claiming to have encircled Pokrovsk for weeks now, and there are plenty of Ukrainian voices that are denying this supposed situation. Ukraine says that this is all just Russian propaganda. Pokrovsk certainly isn't safe, those voices are saying, but the situation isn't as dire as Russia claims. The Kiev Independent was among the first outlets to contradict Russia's claims of encirclement. On October 29th, it said Ukrainian commanders' reports, as well as open-source data, show that Putin's claim of a complete encirclement is still far from reality. But the situation is undoubtedly highly dynamic and deteriorating for the defending side. The outlet highlighted that Russia had indeed managed to plant one of its flags on the western outskirts of Pokrovsk. However, that flag planting was more an exercise in information control than it was dominance over Ukraine. Russia had sent a small group in to plant the flag, take photos, and get out of Dodge before Ukraine's drones came calling. That's hardly an encirclement. None of this is to say that encroachments into aren't happening. The outlet adds they are. However, the Russian forces entering the city are small in number and are getting into via infiltration rather than full frontal assaults. Taking to Facebook, The commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces, Alexander Sisky, explained what Russia's assaults on Pokrovsk really looked like, noting that Putin's claims about the Pokrovsk and Kupiansk situations do not correspond with reality. Sisky said. Along with that, in Pokrovsk, the enemy infantry, avoiding clashes, accumulates in urban development, changes places of residence. So the primary task is to detect and destroy it. Some reports claim that Russia isn't fighting inside Pokrovsk. It's hiding with its troops, offering Putin small propaganda victories as they wait to be hunted down by Ukraine's forces. But what about Konchuk's mentions of the difficulties Ukraine is facing? She isn't wrong, but other Ukrainian soldiers are quick to point out that Russia's seeping strategy doesn't constitute a full encirclement of Pokrovsk. Speaking to TSN on November 3rd, a soldier who goes by the call sign Sonic explained the situation from their perspective. Sonic serves with the Dubbush Hornets strike UAV unit as a drone operator. And they told TSN, there's no full encirclement, neither in Minad nor in Pokrovsk. Unfortunately, fighting is ongoing in both places. The enemy is present there, moving in, and now in rather large groups. Again, Ukraine's situation in Pokrovsk isn't perfect. But the encirclement Putin and his cronies claim is in effect simply isn't there, assuming Ukraine is to be believed. Sonic continued, noting that Russia is at least no longer throwing away its infantry, as though it were its cannon fodder anymore. The country has gotten smarter in the tactical sense, and Pokrovsk is being used as a proving ground for the seeping strategy we mentioned earlier. However, many of the soldiers that Russia is sending into the city aren't equipped to exercise the level of control that Putin wants. Roughly 80% of them are ordinary infantrymen, Sonic claims. Most have no combat experience and are working on short-term contracts. This makes them easy picking for Ukraine's drone units. Once the infiltrating forces are located, this infantry herd is being controlled from the outskirts of. There are some Russian units that know how to fight. There aren't many of them, but they exist. Sonic concludes still. His point is an important one. Pokrovsk isn't encircled. On November 5th, another Ukrainian denial of Pokrovsky encirclement emerged. Barron's reported on this one, noting that the Ukrainian General Staff has added its voice to the argument. There is no encirclement of our units and divisions, the General Staff said on November 5th. It added that Ukraine is fighting tooth and nail to defend one of its most valuable cities from Russian aggression. Measures are being taken to block the enemy who is attempting to infiltrate. It said active resistance to attempts by enemy infantry groups to establish positions is ongoing. Putin is trying,